Okay, so we are going to continue with part 2 on number 11. It says Waldo and Freddie caught fish one weekend. The dot plots show the lengths of the fish they caught. The question says which statement about the lengths of the fish caught by Waldo and Freddie appears to be true. Okay, so again, when we try to deal with what's true, we are going to go through all of them and see what is correct that way. Okay, so F says that the data for Waldo's fish and the data for Freddie's fish are skewed to the right. Okay, remember the tail goes to the right if that's the case. So if I draw on top of this a line at their peaks, okay, I see that the tail goes down to the left, so that would actually be skewed left. And if I draw on top of this, okay, this would not be, I wouldn't say skewed left or right, really. It said that the data for Waldo's fish and the data for Freddie's fish are skewed to the right. That would be incorrect, okay? Because this one is skewed to the left and this one is not skewed, I wouldn't say. Or if I had to pick, I would say skewed left because it has a longer tail that way. Okay, G says that the median length of fish caught by Waldo is greater than the median length of the fish caught by Freddie. Remember, median is middle. Okay, so what I can do is you can either list out the numbers, for example, 15, 17, 17, 17 in order. You can list them out and then find the middle by crossing out from left to right, or you can mark out the dots. Please make sure you are not just marking out the numbers themselves, because that is not the median. The median or the numbers are actually the dots that are there. Okay, so I'm going to find the median for each. Okay. Make sure you are marking out from side to side, one by one. Okay, and so my median here would be 19, okay, because I have a 19 in the middle. Okay, now I'm going to do it here for Freddie's fish, side to side until I get to the middle. Remember, I can only have 1 or 2 numbers in the middle. And it depends on how many there are. Okay, and so I have another that is a 19, and so the median here is 19. And so it said that the median for Waldo was greater than the median for Freddie. That is not true because they are both 19, so they would be equal. Okay. All right, so H says that the range of the length of the fish caught by Freddie is greater than the range of the length of the fish that is caught by Waldo. Okay, so the range, remember, is the highest number minus the smallest number. So the highest number that I have a dot for is 21 minus the lowest number that I have a dot for, which is 15. Okay, and that is, again, how you find the range. If you subtract that, you will get 6. Now we're going to find the range for Freddie's fish. So the highest number that I have a dot for is 22. And the lowest number that I have a dot for is 15. If I subtract, I get 7. And so the range for Freddie's fish is greater than Waldo's fish. So that is true. So the answer would be H. Okay. So number 12 says the number of pets per household for Mrs. Anderson's classes and Miss Murphy's class are shown in the dot plots. And then it says here are 3 statements about the number of pets per household for these 2 classes. Okay, Roman numeral 1 says that the range of the number of pets per household for Mrs. Murphy's class is greater than the range of the number of pets per household for Mrs. Anderson's class. 2 says that the distribution of the data is approximately symmetrical in both sets of data. And then 3 says that the mode of the number of pets per household for Mrs. Anderson's class is equal to the mode of the number of pets per household for Mrs. Murphy's class. Then it says, which of these 3 statements appear to be true? Okay, so I'm going to go through each of these and then see which one is, or which ones are correct if there is more than one that is correct. Okay, so this one says the range of the number of pets per household for Mrs. Murphy's class is greater than the range for Mrs. Anderson's class. So remember, the range is the highest number minus the smallest number. Okay, and so for the range here for Mrs. Anderson's class would be the highest number I have a dot for is 8, and the lowest number I have a dot for is 0. So the range for Anderson's class is 8. And then the range for Miss Murphy's class, the highest number that I have a dot for is actually 6. It has to have a dot. So 6. And then the lowest number I have a dot for is 0. So the range for Miss Murphy's class is 6. So they said that Miss Murphy's class range was greater than Miss Anderson's class range. That is not true, okay, because Miss Anderson has the greater range. And so we know that 1 is not correct. Okay, so actually I can mark out F and G because they include 1 as being correct when it wasn't. Number 2 says the distribution of the data is approximately symmetrical in both sets of data. Okay, if I draw on top of it, they both seem to be skewed right because the tail goes to the right. So they are not symmetrical or equal on both sides. So 2 would be incorrect. So I'm going to mark out H because it has 2 as being one that is correct. Okay. 3 says that the mode of the number of pets per household for Miss Anderson's class is equal to the mode of the number of pets per household for Miss Murphy. So the mode is the one that appears the most. So I have more 1s than anything here. So the mode here would be 1. And I have more 1s than anything here as well. So the mode would be 1 here as well. And so they are both 1. So they are equal modes for both. And so 3 would be the only one that is correct. Okay, so number 13 says that a grocery store kept track of their average yearly fruit prices on 5 fruits for a 2-year period, which is an accurate conclusion on the prices based on the results. Okay, so make sure that you look at the key. So they're telling you that year 1 is the one that is shaded dark, and then year 2 is the one that looks like it's not shaded in or is slightly shaded. Okay, so it says that we're going to start with year 1 and then year 2. Okay, and so it wants us to see which is an accurate conclusion or which one is most correct. Okay, so just so you know how to read this, peaches, okay, for peaches, it seemed that in year 1 it was greater, and then year 2 it decreased, okay? So peaches actually decreased from year 1 to year 2. The limes actually seem to have increased from year 1 to year 2. Grapefruit seem to have decreased from year 1 to year 2. Oranges also seem to have decreased from year 1 to year 2, and apples seem to have a big decrease from year 1 to year 2. Okay, so that's how I would read it. So A says that limes had the largest increase. Okay, well, looking at limes, it did increase, and it seems to be the only one that actually did increase. The rest of them seem to have decreased. And so A would be the answer. Okay, apples did not increase. Grapefruit did not increase. Peaches, it says peaches decrease more than grapefruit. Well, peaches decrease. Okay, I would say that this is at 0.5 and then it went to 0.4. So it decreased by 0.1. And then grapefruit went from 1.2. I would say this is 1.1. So it also decreased by 0.1. And so they decrease an equal amount. So that's not true. Okay, and so A would be your correct answer. Okay. All right, so number 14 says that Jenna is responsible for the inventory at the boutique where she works. The bar graph below shows how many different items she keeps in the 3 areas of the store. Then it says if Jenna increases the amount of adult items to 24, how many teen items should she plan to have in order to keep the ratio of adult to teen items the same? Okay, it says record your answer and fill in the bubbles. We don't have a grid here, but just make sure you know how to fill in the bubbles when you are given a grid. Okay, so, all right. The question is, how many teen items should she plan to have in order to keep the ratio of adult to teen items the same? So we're dealing with adults and teens. Okay, so I'm going to make a adult to teen ratio. Okay, so for adults, it looks like it is at 16. So I'm going to put adults up top, and then this should actually be teen, not 10. For teens, it'll be 6. Okay, so it says if Jenna increases the number of adult teens to 24, what would the teen items be in order for this to be the same ratio? So what I'm going to do is, I don't know the amount of teens yet, so I'm going to put a variable here. Usually we put X, but it doesn't matter what letter you put. Okay, in order to solve this, what I can do is cross multiply and then divide, or just cross multiply both ways and isolate the variable. Okay, so it doesn't matter how you choose to do it. Okay, I will just cross multiply both ways for this one. So 24 times 6, remember we are cross multiplying, so we're multiplying. If you multiply that, you will get 144. We're going to set that equal to, all right, because these are proportions, to when I cross multiply this side. So 16 times X, all you do is put it together, so it'd be 16X. Okay, then you want to isolate the variable. So to isolate it, we do the opposite operation. So they are multiplying here, since there's no sign in between the number and the variable. So we do the opposite of multiplication, which is to divide both sides by 16. Okay, this side cancels out because it's equal to 1. So you're left with X is equal to, and then you're going to divide 144 by 16. If you do that, you will get an answer of 9. Okay, if you do have a grid, okay, it looks something like this. With a decimal there, just know that 9 is a whole number, so the decimal would be behind that number for it to stay a 9. And so the 9 would go in front of the decimal as a whole number. Okay, because if it's behind, it would be a different number. And then make sure you bubble in your answer, because without bubbling it in, the scanner will mark it wrong. Okay. All right, so number 15 says that a survey of residents in Wolf Creek Estates asked them to rate their satisfaction with the city running trails on a scale of 1 to 4. The results are shown below. Which percentage bar graph best represents the data? Okay, because I'm dealing with a percent bar graph, that means I want to get this set of data to turn into percents. And in order to do that, I would have to start off with a fraction. Okay, so you can't get to a percent without a fraction. And so one way to do it is to do a fraction. And from your fraction, you need to know that you go to a decimal. And then from the decimal, you would be able to get to your percent, okay, in order to get to the percent bar graph. So what I have to do first in order to get to a fraction is to get the total, okay, because the total will be my denominator for my fraction. So I'm going to add these numbers together, the ones that they gave me, and get the total first. Okay, so I'm just going to write total. If I add these 4 numbers together, 18, 27, 63, and 42, I will get a total of 150. Okay, So I must get the total first because that's going to be my denominator for my fraction. Okay. And then here I'm just going to make pretty much a section for fractions, decimals, and then what I want in the end is to get a percent. Okay. So I'm going to do that for each of my numbers. Okay, so my numbers, or the number of people that they're talking about, is 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are just my categories. Okay. All right, so my fraction for the first one would be 18, right? 18 over my total, which is 150. So I'm going to put 18 over 150. And then the next one, the number is now 27, and I'm going to put it over my total, which is 150. The next one would be 63 over my total, which is 150. Then the next one would be 42 over my total, which is 150. Okay. All right, then you want to take that into a decimal for each. And so pretty much you would be dividing, okay? So it would be 18 divided by 150, 27 divided by 150, 63 divided by 150, and 42 divided by 150. Okay, in other words, Nerd and Donkey to get to your decimal. If you were here last year, you know about Nerd and Donkey. Okay, so the 18 would go inside the house, right? Just so you know. And then 150 would go outside. Okay, that's how it would look if you were dividing. Okay, once I divide that, these are the decimals that I get. So the first one, I get 0.12. The second one, I get 0.18. The third one, I get 0.42. And then the last one, I get 0.28. Okay, now to get to my percent, pretty much I would move the decimal twice to the right. Okay, so the first one will be 12%. The second one will be 18%. The third one will be 42%. And the last one will be 28%. Okay, you can make sure you're right if you add all these together and it is 100%. It has to be exactly 100. Okay, so not 99.9, not 101. Okay, so make sure that you can add these and get 100. If not, then you must have done something wrong, so try it again. Okay, after you are sure you're right by adding these together and getting 100%, then you can make your percent bar graph. Okay, so the way you would do that, okay, this shouldn't be the first time you're seeing this if you were doing your lessons and your assignments on the day that they were assigned. Okay, so you should have saw this done before. Okay, but I will remind you. Okay, so the first section would be from the first number. Okay, you are representing the percents inside the bar graph. So the first percent would be 12%. So I would imagine 12% to be right here. And I'll just mark it by saying 12%. And that is for my ones. Okay, that is for my ones. Okay, now for the second and for the rest, once you move past your first one, you start to add the percents to get your next label for your percentage. And so it's going to be 12 for the first one, so I'm going to put a star by that. Plus, you're going to add the next one, which is 18. Okay, and then you will get 30. Okay, so the next label will be 30%, not 18. Okay, you have to add the 18 to get to the next label on your percent bar graph. So it's going to be 30% for 2. Then you continue to add, so plus 42. So what you will be labeling is 72%, what I would imagine is around here. Okay, that is for my 3s, and then add the last one plus 28. And hopefully I get to 100, which I do. And so that is my last label. Okay, that is for my 4s. So make sure you know that it's not these actual labels. Okay, these are just telling you what to add to get to your next label on your percent bar graphs. Okay, all right, so we're pretty much looking for one that matches what I have, with one being at 12%, the next line being at 30%, the next line being at 72%, and the last line being 100. Okay, so this one looks to be around 12. Okay, so a little bit past 10, so that can be correct. This one is close to 20. Looks like it's looks like it is at 18, so that is not what I want. This one's a little bit past 10, so that can be 12. This one looks like it's around or close to 15, so that is not what I want. Okay, the next one should be at 30%. So this one looks to be at 30%. That's good. This one looks like it is not exactly at 30%. Okay, it looks like it is at 28 or 27 or so. And so that is not what I want. I need it to be exactly at 30%. And so your answer would be A. Just so you know, we'll keep going just so you can see. Okay, the next one should have been marked at 72%. Okay, which it looks like to be a little bit past 70, so 72. And the last one is at 100, as it should be. Okay, so your answer would be A. Number 16 says the number of free throws made by the members of a basketball team are shown, which best represents the data. Okay, you should have also went over this before, but just so you know, the stems represents the tens place and the leaves represent the ones place. Okay, so we just want to see which stem and leaf plot matches my set of data. Okay, so I should have 154. Okay, so 54, I have one of those. 54, one of those, one of those. This one has no 54, it has a 55, which is not what I am looking for. Okay, then I have 156, so 56, 56, 56, they all have that. Then I have, I'll check them off as I check, 159. Okay, they all seem to have 159, so that's good. I have 162, so I do have 162 here. This one seems to have 1, 2, 3 62s. Okay, I don't have 3 62s in my set, so that is not true. This has 162 as well, so that's good. I have 2 68s. Okay, so 2 68s. Okay, this one only has 168, but I need 2, so that is not true. I need those 2 68s. And so A would represent it the best. Okay? All right, number 17 says, which circle graph best describes the data in this table below? Okay, so basically, a circle graph is made of percentages as well. So I want to get this to become percentages as I did before on number 15, I believe. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is get a total because you're going to want to get a fraction. Okay, so I'm going to get a total by adding these numbers together. Okay, if I do so, I will get a total of 500. Okay, and that's going to be the denominator for my fractions. So real quick, I'm just going to make a section for fractions, decimals, and what I want in the end is percents. Okay, I'm going to do that for each of my sections. All right, so the fraction here would be the actual number on top, so 100. Over my total, which is 500. Okay, this will be the next number, 200 over 500. This will be 100 over 500. And this will be 100 over 500. Notice that the total is always, or the denominator is always going to be the same because they all have the same total. And that's what a fraction is the total is always on the bottom, whatever the total is. Okay, to get our decimal, as before, we're going to divide. So remember, it's whatever's on top goes on the inside, and then whatever's on the bottom goes on the outside. So you would divide it that way. Okay, if I divide it, I get a decimal of 0.2 for the first one. If I divide this one, I get 0.4. Then here I get 0.2, and here I get 0.2 as well. Okay, then to get to the percent, you move the decimal twice to the right. Okay, so 1, 2. Okay, it has to move twice no matter if there's 1 or 2 decimals. Okay, in that gap, I put a 0, and so that'd be 20%, not 2%. Please make sure you know that you had to add a 0 in that gap. then this would be 40%, 20%, and 20%. Okay, so now you're just going to see which one looks like it has these correct percentages. All right, well, for one, we know that the pens will have the most. So if we look at a graph and it doesn't have pens as being the most, it is not right. So F would be wrong because it has markers being the most. Okay. The next thing is you should know that the markers, the paints, and the sketch pads are all equal. Okay, they should all look equal. Well, I have my markers being more than my sketch pads and my paints, even though those three are supposed to be equal. So J is not right. Okay. With this one, your pens look to be 50%, but the pens should be 40%, not 50. Okay, so it shouldn't be a whole half. So H is not right either. Okay, so your answer would be G because your markers, your paint, and your sketch pads are equal, with pens being the most, but not 50%. Okay?